Hello everybody and welcome back to Watching Walford. I'm Ash and today I'm going to guide you through my review of Who Killed Rayne Royce. The storyline that kind of transpired over the span of like a year or 9 months, where we had influencer Rayne Royce, played by Gemma Donovan, eventually turn out to be a narcissistic and abusive person, which culminated in a character taking her life on I think it was the 27th of October episode of Hollyoaks of 2023, a storyline that kicked off a big whodunit, that being who killed Rayne Royce. Now, as in recent scenes, Romeo has departed the show and pled guilty to the manslaughter of Rayne Royce. It is now time that we see that it is a wrap, essentially, and now it's time to kind of pick apart some of the pieces and some of the discrepancies that made it, and generally just grading the storyline. Now, the Rayne Royce character, played by, I say soap like alumni, played by Gemma Donovan, who obviously played Harlow in Neighbours, character who had a lot of good stuff, but ultimately was never a mainstay, but a very cool character. Nonetheless, she played this narcissistic Rayne Royce who would hurt anyone and would freak out if she wasn't centre of attention. And this would later manifest in her hitting Romeo because he kept on messing up, and then he ended up snapping in the end. And the payoff is that Romeo killed Rayne, and it is underwhelming as fuck, because they then took a story that was like, wow, everybody wants to kill her, and then they turned it into a story about an abuser being killed by the victim, but without any of the serious emotional tact of dealing with this being the case, because it took a solid about 3 months or so to finally reveal who killed her. And the payoff just slowly turned into this constant fucking cycle of making characters worse to fit the story, rather than actually making it make sense within the context of the scenario, of the situation. As we saw a lot of characters who have been very open and very clear with their personalities take a full 180 and decide to just be a self-destructive character. Like, we had Perry, who previously lost Juliet in the same year, then slowly become infatuated with Romeo, and they weren't going to get together because, oh no, we couldn't ruin Jules, we would ruin her feelings, But then it slowly turned into this twisted love story where Juliet doesn't matter anymore, and she would have accepted them. She wouldn't have, because they were truly soulmates. Juliet died for this. That wasn't the intended outcome, because you now have you now have Perry, who doesn't care about Juliet anymore, but she says she does. But now Romeo's the centerpiece of her world, and it just kind of lads, what have you done with this? Next we had Hunter, who it was confirmed that he was guilty, and he had a rough time in prison, which meant that by the time he got out and it was revealed that it was Romeo, obviously Hunter fucking now despises Romeo. And that's a friendship that goes deep, I say deep, it's only been a couple of years, but it's a relationship that has lasted years and lasted the death of Lily Drinkwell, rather, the one who died of sepsis because she got infected whilst self-harming, rather. And where it kind of delves off is now Hunter despises Romeo, which I guess makes sense. You had to do the weird thing with Hunter and Freya, where Freya got infatuated with Hunter, and they had to make it look dodgy like that. Phoenix was there to be there, essentially, and serve the purpose. Lacey was there to first bring in Rayne and then take away Nadira, so Nadira left. So now, even from the whodunit, we're left with Perry, Lizzie, Prince, Hunter, And I think that's it as to who was actually involved at the time. I think it was a prior story, like a previous storyliner's ideas, as we have finally transitioned to the new direction, as shown by the When Worlds Collide episode. That was fantastic. And I think it was simply trying to muddle through the previous writer's plans and not making it too important in the grand scheme of things. A kind of, I mean, where I sit from it, I think it was a poorly executed whodunit with not a very clear path to the ending, as it just became this really weird, like, twisting, like, it was like being on a roller coaster that just kept going forward, but instead of realizing that it was linear, it just decided to go meow. You know, it started zigzagging just to make it seem like it wasn't just going from A to B. And I don't think it was a satisfying conclusion in either direction. I think some of the performances have been very strong, but I also think that it was a story that kind of clutched once again at characters that either wanted to leave or felt it was time to leave, as obviously Juliet left, which wasn't involved in this, but another character who went fuck it, I'm off. Gemma Donovan also left the show very shortly. Maybe she got word that that Neighbours was up. Oh fuck yeah, sick. Oh, joking, of course. And obviously now Romeo has left the show, that being Owen Turner has also left the show and is no longer there as Romeo Nightingale, which isn't necessarily a shame, because I think that the Nightingales as a family have been absolutely fucked around to no end. And it's quite impressive to see the lengths that Hollyoaks go to make the Nightingales more and more fucked up as the years go by. Alfie, cancer, girlfriend died, schizophrenia. James, toxic, abusive father who demeaned him for being gay. James starts to show similar behaviors to Mac, who was a fucking awful piece of shit. Mac who killed Nathan as well. Like, I don't even know what Ellie's doing at this point. Like, the fucking mess of a family, and Marnie's dead. Donna Marie. It's just a big old mess, all in all. And I think there were definite step-ups by the family, but I think the storyline got lost in a shuffle of producers and therefore wasn't necessarily kept to such a fine level. And it being the only other whodunit in this previous year, I suppose there was also the Who Killed Craig. But even with that being said, the best whodunit of 2023 did go to EastEnders, and by proxy it's the best one of 2024, but that's because it hasn't happened yet. No, and I don't think anything like any whodunits will happen this year, because we're now on a bit of a cool down. A storyline that bolstered the tension and the excitement for the show, but ultimately fell to the wayside in the end, as we see a lot of the characters who were there to be in this storyline changed personalities to fit the narrative, instead of being consistent and just being sus to be sus. A disappointing finish and an interesting start, but a disappointing finish, and a story that slowly just came to a screeching halt. If I had to give it a grade, I would give it a it's either a C or a D, simply because there was no source to it. The first episode they did, that house episode, was fantastic. The big, like, oh, you know, they had the cool graphics and the characters. They had like the Big Brother approach of like all the cameras in the rooms. It was a really interesting story and a really great portrayal in that thing of Rayne. I feel like she did a good job. I feel like Romeo or Owen Turner did a fantastic job of being a man racked with guilt. But ultimately, I think the damage is palpable, and the amount of shit they had to change to squeeze into this gap. It was like they bought it's like they bought a small, but their size is an extra large. So it's just trying to squeeze every little bit into that bad boy and act like nothing's changed. It's a disappointing thing, but also in a sense not particularly, simply because a lot of these characters have been shuffled out anyways, which is going to lead to their replacement and lead to another character getting a more prominent position, rather, as we get to see what the new executive producers and writers will do under this new direction. It's disappointing to say that it wasn't one of my favourite storylines, and as much as I do love Hollyoaks, we have a much clearer, more interesting story to tell with Steve's grief and how he deals and struggles in the wake of Ella's death. A time to forget about previous storylines and script Hollyoaks as it is, shake it around a bit and test to see whether it's worth it, you know. Test to see whether it sticks, and I think likewise, I think we're kind of getting out of a bit of the status quo that was established, you know. We have couples splitting up, Tom and Yaz, done, Perry by herself, Cleo and Joel, Steve and James probably breaking up eventually. Probably not, I'm reading into it too much. But we're like Darren and Nancy finally together again at last and happy for once. And I think that we are heading to a much more clearer landscape where we can see what's on the horizon for Hollyoaks, and it is looking very good. So, unfortunate to give the Rayne Royce storyline a fairly bad review, but ultimately, look, it was a rough time for the show, and it has gotten extremely better. However, as the show improved, you could tell that this one was kind of like a fart that just wouldn't go away. So a C. I'd give it a C. It was basic, it was bland, it was mediocre, it was interesting at the start, but in the end it was all fart and no poo. I have been Ash from Watching Walford, and this has been my review of the Hollyoaks Who Killed Rayne Royce storyline. Just want to thank you for watching, and if you do want to see more Hollyoaks videos, make sure to tell me in the comment section by commenting, and tell me if you like it by liking, subscribing, and all in all just support the channel and continue to be here, as we do try to keep the Hollyoaks coverage fairly high up there, but ultimately if I'm covering EastEnders every week, sometimes you get a little bit behind. But perhaps if I catch up on all the Hollyoaks right now, maybe there'll be a time where I go through and do like a roundup of all the things I've missed and all the things that are interesting to talk about. But thank you for watching. I've been Ash from Watching Walford. Make sure to catch us in the next one. See you then. Bye-bye.